The new, innovative Elna 925 DCX, Pro 905, and Pro 904 Sergers bring you a whole new concept in sewing. The Elna 925 DCX provides 16 built-in stitch programs, including 3 cover hem choices, a narrow cover hem, a wide cover hem, plus the new triple cover hem. The 925 DCX also sews the 5-thread overlock, most commonly seen in the garment industry, and the chain stitch that can be sewn anywhere in the fabric. The Elna Pro 905 offers 14 built-in stitch programs, including the 5-thread overlock, the garment industry standard, the chain stitch for practical or decorative purposes, and the narrow cover hem. The Elna Pro 904 offers 11 stitch programs. All models include the 4-thread overlock for constructing knit garments, plus an array of 2-thread and 3-thread techniques. The 3-thread overlock, the narrow hem, the rolled hem, the flatlock, and the 2-thread overcast. And the stretch wrapped stitch allows you to handle any stretch fabric with ease. The Elna 925 DCX, Pro 905, and Pro 904 give you all this and more. The stitch selection on the machines can be expanded by the use of Pro cards. Each card gives you 3 new stitch techniques. Choose from the practical to the pretty. Elna has made serging even easier with the most comprehensive display screen. One screen provides all the information you need to set up for flawless sewing. Let's view some of the basic features before learning to thread your Elna serger. Refer to your operator's manual as a reference guide. Your Elna Pro serger has a built-in carrying grip, so it's easy to move. The thread antenna guide is detachable. Snap it into position next to the spool pins. The differential feed, stitch length, and adjustable speed control levers are located directly in front of you, so they're easy to use. You can preset the speed on your Elna Pro serger with the electronic speed reducer. Sew as fast or as slow as you wish. All models have a sensor in the motor to ensure strong needle penetration, even at slow speeds. When you stop sewing, the needle automatically stops in a high position. 5 needle positions accommodate the various overlock and cover hem stitches. Needle positions R1 and R2 refer to the overlock stitches. Needle positions L0, L1, and L2 are used when sewing the chain stitch or one of the 3 cover hems. No more than 3 needles will be used at one time. The Elna Pro 905 has 4 needle positions for its many stitch possibilities. The available positions are R1 and R2 for the overlock needles. L1 and L2 refer to the chain stitch needles. You will use no more than 2 needles at one time. The Elna Pro 904 has 2 needle positions, R1 and R2. An exclusive Elna feature makes changing needles a breeze. Press the safety cover down. It will swing to the right. The needle clamp release button is located here. Grasp the needle clamp with your left thumb and index finger, and press the release button while tilting the clamp towards you. See how the clamp tilts forward? This helps you see where to insert the needles. Use the Allen screwdriver that comes with your machine to loosen and tighten the needle screws. After inserting the needle, press the needle clamp back into position. Remember to replace the safety cover. 3 safety switches have been installed for your protection. One switch connects to the safety cover of the needle clamp and the presser foot lever. Another is connected to the needle clamp itself. The machine will not sew if the clamp is tilted. The third switch is connected to the front and side doors. The presser foot must be down and the doors must be closed before your Elna Pro Serger will begin sewing. Your Elna Pro Serger trims with 2 cutting blades as it sews. The larger movable blade moves up and down and works like a scissors next to the smaller stationary blade. You can disengage your movable blade. Open the side door. Push the silver knob to the right and rotate the blade down into the non-working position. The stationary cutting blade is easy to see here. The stationary blade does not move while sewing, but it can be adjusted slightly to the right or left to control the fabric cutting width. The dial located here refers to the cutting width. The cutting widths are visible in the window when the side door is closed. The widths are indicated in millimeters and the most common inch settings. The stitch width finger is built into the machine under the needle plate. Turn the flywheel towards you and bring the needle bar to the highest position to disengage the finger. Pull the silver knob to the right and rotate the finger towards you, bringing the finger down into non-working position. When returning the finger to working position, remember to place the needle bar in the highest position. Pull the knob out and rotate back up. Let's bring the movable blade into cutting position by pushing the silver knob and rotating the blade into working position. For consistent cutting of extra heavy fabric, lock the movable blade holder here. Use the Allen screwdriver and turn the screw clockwise to tighten. Be sure to loosen the screw for normal sewing. The pressure control is located on top of the machine. Adjustable settings range from 1 to 6. Normal sewing pressure is 5. Normal pressure is recommended for most fabrics. Lift the presser foot to open the upper side door. The light bulb is located here. The clear lens diffuses the light. The most commonly used accessories, like tweezers, are conveniently located inside the machine. Open the side door. Here you will find the automatic needle threader, Allen screwdriver, a package of needles, and the 2-thread converter for sewing 2-thread techniques. The accessory box contains 5 spool caps for the 925 DCX and Pro 905. The Pro 904 comes with 4 spool caps. The caps enable you to sew with traditional thread spools. Place the cap on top of the spool to allow the thread to feed smoothly. The spool pins are far enough apart to accommodate industrial-size cones side by side. You will also find an extra movable blade, a spanner to change the blade, a lint brush, a bottle of oil, and for the 925 DCX and Pro 905 only, a quilting guide. All models come with foam pads. These pads prevent decorative threads from twisting around the spool pin. Each model comes with the snap-on thread guide and tension release clips. The snap-on thread guide also prevents decorative threads from tangling. The tension release clips fit here to allow heavier threads to feed smoothly.
All models come with an attachable waste tray. The extension table comes with the 925 DCX and Pro 905. It is used when sewing the chain stitch and the cover hem, which you will learn later. The standard snap-on overlock plate is located on the front door and covers the loopers. The plate is detachable by pulling this tab. Grasp with your thumb and index finger. Pull the tab up slightly and firmly towards you. Attach the extension table. Make sure the tab and each corner of the table are in the correct position before sliding the table into place. A vinyl dust cover comes with all models. The cover has pockets to easily transport the accessory box, foot control, and cord. The slot on the top allows you to reach the carrying grip to transport your serger.
Let's get ready to sew. Pull up the thread antenna guide. Plug the foot control and cord in on the right side of your machine. Switch on the machine.
As you are learning to thread your machine, we suggest you use the thread colors that match the thread guides. Let's place the serger cone threads on the spool pins. Start at the left. Blue, red, yellow, and green. On the 925 DCX and Pro 905, add a brown cone to the far right. When you turn on the 925 DCX, the screen will display the last stitch sewn before switching the machine off.
When you turn on the machine, the 5-thread technique will appear on the display screen for the Elna Pro 905, and the 4-thread technique will appear for the Elna Pro 904. Each time you turn on the machine, you will hear a tone. The sound is the automatic tensions setting themselves. Let's advance to the 3-thread wide program by pushing the button here. The 3-thread overlock stitch is the most common stitch for finishing the edge of your fabric. Use it to prevent raw edges from raveling when you pre-wash fabrics. An overlock stitch is formed by the use of loopers and 1 or 2 needles. The upper looper lays the thread on top of the fabric, while the lower looper lays the thread on the underside of the fabric. The 2 loopers work back and forth as the needle catches the loops to form a stretchable overlock stitch. The cutting blades trim away the excess fabric as it is fed through the machine. Let's show you how to thread your machine for the 3-thread wide program.
Look at your display screen. The color-coded boxes correspond with the various thread tension guides. The color-coded system extends through the threading route. Press any one of the plus/minus keys to see a number value in the window. This also indicates which tension guides to thread on the Pro 905 and 904. An asterisk appears in the 925 DCX window to indicate which thread guides are to be used. It tells me to thread the red, yellow, and green guides for the 925 DCX and Pro 905. The Pro 904 uses the blue, yellow, and green guides. On the inside of the front door, threading charts are provided for the various stitch programs. Refer to the 5-thread chart. On the 925 DCX, use threading sequence 1, 2, and 4. On the Pro 905, use sequence 1, 2, and 3. The Elna Pro 904 uses chart number 4, threading sequence 1, 2, and 3. The chart tells me to thread the yellow or upper looper guide first. Bring the thread through the open guide on the antenna. Pass it under the clip here and lay it in the tension discs. Place the thread behind this guide. It will automatically lay here in the groove. Pass the thread through the guides here and here. The next guide, located here, requires you to bring the thread up,
over and down, slipping it into proper placement. Now, thread the eye of the upper looper. Pass the thread to the left under the presser foot. Make sure the thread is not caught in front of the lower looper. Next, thread the lower looper using the green cone and the open guide on the antenna. Follow the green threading guides. You will be following the thread route similar to the upper looper. The same guides will be used here and here. Pass the thread through this guide. Now you are ready to thread the lower looper. Turn the flywheel towards you to bring the lower looper to the far right. Press down here to expose the self-threading guide of the lower looper. Slip the thread into the guide and push the lever up. Thread the eye of the looper. Wasn't that easy? Pass the thread over the upper looper and under the presser foot to the left.
Let's thread the needle. Use the red cone on the 925 DCX and Pro 905. Use the blue cone on the Pro 904. Insert the thread through the open guide of the antenna and under the clip.
Lay the thread in the tension discs and on the right side of this guide. Pass the thread through this slot in the take-up lever cover. Place the thread behind the two guides directly above the needle. Finally, pass the thread through the eye of the needle using the needle threader. The small triangle indicates the top side of the threader. Pass a length of thread horizontally into the threader groove. Gently press the threader to the needle and slide it down the front of the needle. The narrow tongue in the threader pushes the thread through the eye and forms a loop. Bring the thread all the way through the eye and under the presser foot to the left. Check to make sure you have not missed any guides. Let's consult our display screen for additional setup information. Remember, the tensions are set automatically with each stitch. The 3-thread wide stitch tells me to set the stitch length at 3, located here, and the differential feed at 1, located here. The display screen also indicates the needle position as R1. The stitch width finger and upper looper are to be in working position. The display indicates the use of the snap-on overlock plate. The movable blade should be up in working position. The cutting width is indicated at 5.5. Make the necessary adjustment by moving the cutting width dial.
The presser foot is set on B for the 925 DCX and Pro 905 and A for the Pro 904.
Remember, the presser foot must be lowered to begin sewing. Form a few stitches by hand turning the flywheel towards you. Continue sewing on a medium weight woven fabric. Check to see if your stitch is forming properly. The top view of the overlock stitch looks like a close diagonal serpentine stitch. The needle thread looks like a regular straight stitch on a sewing machine. The underside of the stitch resembles small triangle shapes. Did you notice the tiny red or blue dots? Depending on your serger model, this is the needle thread. A balance stitch will lock the upper and lower looper threads at the edge of the fabric. Use the back tack device to secure the beginning of your stitch. Make a long thread tail. Lift the presser foot. Bring the thread tail to the front and catch it under this hook. As you sew, the machine automatically trims and stitches over the thread tail, securing it under the stitch. Let's sew a 3-thread overlock for finer fabrics. Select the 3-thread program. Consult the display screen. It tells you how to set up the machine.
On the Pro 905 and 904, press any one of the plus/minus keys to indicate which tensions to thread up. It tells us to use the red, yellow, and green guides for the 925 DCX and Pro 905. The Pro 904 uses blue, yellow, and green. The guides are already threaded from our previous stitch.
The stitch length reads 2.5. Differential feed is 1.0.
Use the R2 needle position on the 925 DCX. On the Pro 905 and 904, the needle is in the R1 position. The stitch width finger is to be down on the Pro 905 and 904.
We will need to clear the overlock stitches from the finger before disengaging it. Lift the presser foot. Open the front door. Turn the flywheel towards you to bring the needle bar to the highest position. Press the tension release button while gently pulling on the overlock tail to remove the stitches from the stitch finger. Pull the silver knob of the stitch width finger to the right and rotate down into non-working position.
On the Pro 905 and 904, the display screen indicates only one other change, the cutting width. It reads 3.5. Make the adjustment by moving the dial until you see 3.5 in the window. The 925 DCX still reads 5.5 for cutting width.
Lower the presser foot. Hand turn the flywheel to form a few stitches. Close the front door. You are ready to sew. Compare this width to the 3-thread wide stitch. See the difference in the width? This width is more appropriate for batiste, fine silks, sheers, and crepe de chine fabrics. Let's try another 3-thread stitch, a narrow hem.
Consult the display screen for setup. Press any one of the plus/minus keys to see which thread guides to use. The 925 DCX and Pro 905 still use red, yellow, green. The Pro 904 also uses the red, yellow, and green. The stitch length is set at 1. Differential feed is 1. The needle position changes to R2. Do you remember how to change a needle on the Pro 905 and 904?
Clip the needle thread. Disengage the safety cover to access the needle clamp button. Press the button while pushing the clamp towards you. Use the Allen screwdriver to change the needle. For the Pro 904, thread the needle using the red tension guides. Press the tension release button to get a longer thread tail to thread the eye of the needle. Be sure to use the handy needle threader. Push the needle clamp back and return the safety cover. Pass the needle thread under the presser foot.
The only other change on the Pro 905 and 904 is the cutting width. Change it to 5.5. On the 925 DCX, disengage the stitch width finger.
Hand turn the flywheel to form a few stitches. Now, sew on your fabric. Compare the narrow hem to the 3-thread and 3-thread wide stitches. Each one is a perfectly balanced 3-thread stitch, a width for every fabric weight. The narrow hem is perfect for sheers and light to medium weight fabrics. It makes an attractive edge finish for ruffles on home dec items, cloth napkins, and flounces on skirts and blouses. Let's try one more 3-thread stitch, a rolled hem. We will continue to use the red, yellow, and green threading guides. The stitch length and differential feed remain at 1. There are no other changes indicated. We will test sew on a lightweight fabric.
Let's take a close look at how a perfect rolled hem should look. The upper looper thread has rolled to the back side. The lower looper thread, or green thread, is barely visible. The machines automatically change the tensions for you.
The rolled hem is a beautiful fine finish for lightweight and sheer fabrics used for scarves, bridal, and dancewear. Now you are ready to learn about a 4-thread stitch. Advance the display screen to read 4-thread.
On the Pro 905 and 904, press any one of the plus/minus keys to see which tension guides to thread. In addition to using the red, yellow, and green, we will be using the blue tension guide. Use the 4-thread chart on the inside door for the 925 DCX, Pro 905, and Pro 904.
Pass the blue thread through the antenna guide and under the clip. Lay into the tension discs. Pass the thread to the right side of this guide and through the slot of the take-up lever cover. Place the thread into the 2 guides directly above the needle clamp. We will thread the needle in a minute. Look, needles are indicated in positions R1 and R2. We will need to put a needle in the R1 position. Do you remember how to insert a needle? Let's clip the R2 needle thread before disengaging the needle clamp. Thread the eye of the needles. When serging with 2 needles, the red thread will be for the innermost needle, and the blue thread will be for the outermost needle. Return the needle clamp and safety cover to working position. The display screen tells us to change the stitch length to 2.5. The differential feed remains at 1. It also tells us to place the stitch width finger in working position. Do you remember how to do this? Open the front door. Hand turn the flywheel until the needles are in the highest position. Pull the silver knob of the stitch width finger to the right and rotate it up into position. Use the tweezers to move aside the upper and lower looper threads so the finger does not catch them. No other changes need to be made. Hand turn the flywheel to form a few stitches before stepping on the foot control. The 4-thread stitch is the same as the 3-thread, with the addition of another needle thread for a more secure stitch. This stitch is appropriate for stretch fabrics, such as lycra, cotton lycra blends, sweatshirt fleece, and interlocks. The stretchable 4-thread stitch is perfect for applying ribbing. Fold the ribbing in half. Align the raw edges and sew. It provides a clean, stretchable finish. Let's sew a seam on this lofty sweater knit. Look how wavy it is. This seam won't do for a stretch knit. Advance the display screen to the Stretch Knit program. It tells us to change the stitch length to 3.0 and differential feed to 1.5. Sew the sweater knit again. Look at the improvement with the use of the differential feed system. Let's review the stitches we have done so far. You have sewn a 3-thread wide, 3-thread, narrow hem, and a rolled hem. You have learned the application of a 4-thread stitch and how to handle stretch knits. Let's do another stretch stitch.
Advance the display screen to the stretch wrapped stitch. On the Pro 905 and 904, check which thread guides to use by pressing one of the plus/minus keys. It tells us to use the blue, red, and green guides. We will need to remove the thread from the yellow or upper looper guide.
The stitch length is 2.0 and the differential feed is set at 1. Needle positions R1 and R2 remain the same. Look at the upper looper symbol. It indicates to use the 2-thread converter. Open up the side door. The converter is kept here. Before placing the converter on the upper looper, hand turn the flywheel to clear the green thread from the upper looper to prevent the thread from getting trapped. The 2-thread converter has a tiny prong at the tip. This prong fits in the eye of the upper looper from behind. Press the wide end of the converter onto the upper looper. It will fit snugly. Set the cutting width at 6.0 by adjusting the dial.
On the 925 DCX, set the cutting width at 5.5.
Form a few stitches by hand turning the flywheel. Look closely at the function of the 2-thread converter. It allows the lower looper thread to be caught by the needle. The stretch wrapped stitch was developed for stretch fabrics. Test sew on 2 layers of t-shirt knit. This stitch looks similar to the 4-thread overlock. You see 2 needle threads on top, the blue and red. The green lower looper thread loops on the top and wraps around to the back side. This makes an incredibly stretchy seam. It's perfect for active wear such as leotards and bodysuits. It's time to try a 2-thread technique, a flatlock. Advance the display screen to the Flatlock 2 program.
On the Pro 905 and 904, check which thread guides to use by pressing one of the plus/minus keys. We will only use the red and green guides for the 925 DCX and Pro 905. This means you can remove the thread from the blue needle tension guide.
The Pro 904 uses the blue and green guides. You will remove the thread from the red tension guide. Clip the threads just above the body of the machine and at the eye of the needle. Refer back to the display screen. Adjust the stitch length to 2 and the differential feed to 1. There should be a needle in the R1 position. We will need to remove the needle from the R2 position. Now thread the R1 needle. Bring the thread under the presser foot and to the left. The movable blade is to be down in non-working position. Open the side and front doors to disengage the blade. Hand turn the flywheel to form a few stitches. To sew a 2-thread flatlock, place wrong sides of the fabric together. Since the movable blade has been disengaged, you will use the edge of the needle plate as your guide. Notice how loose the needle thread is. This allows you to gently pull the fabric apart, and the seam will now lay flat. One fabric edge will overlap the other, forming a flatlock, hence the name. This technique can also be done on the fold of the fabric, which allows you to make decorative stripes without cutting the fabric. A flatlock is used on the exposed seam of a sweatshirt, commonly seen in ready-to-wear.
Let's advance the display screen to the 5-thread stitch on the 925 DCX and Pro 905. This stitch consists of a 3-thread overlock and a 2-thread chain stitch. Use the 5-thread chart located on the inside front door. Follow the threading sequence for the 3-thread overlock as before. Do not forget to remove the 2-thread converter. Thread the chain looper.
Pass the brown thread through the antenna guide. Open the door on the right side to expose the tension disc. Place the thread behind this guide and lay it in the tension disc. Close the door. Slide the thread to the right side of this guide. The thread will automatically slide into the groove. The next 3 guides are close together. They are indicated with a small brown square. Thread the 2 remaining guides here and here. Now you are ready to thread the chain looper. Bring the needles to the lowest position to move the chain looper to the far right. Push this lever up to fully expose the eye of the chain looper. Bring the thread behind the looper, passing it forward through this guide. Now thread the eye of the looper. Leave the thread tail hanging. The looper will automatically engage itself upon sewing. There is no need to push the lever back. Consult the display screen for additional setup information. Set the stitch length at 3, differential feed at 1. It tells us to use the L2 and R1 needle positions. Do you remember how to insert a needle?
We will thread the chain needle using the blue tension guides.
Place the thread under this guide and pass it into this slot and down on the other side, allowing the thread to slip into the check spring. Thread the chain needle. Let the thread tail lay to the left on top of the presser foot. Make sure the movable blade is up. The cutting width is 8.5. Use the cutting width dial to adjust it. The presser foot says A. Flip the lever on the presser foot to A. Place 2 layers of a medium weight woven fabric under the presser foot, making sure that the chain needle is penetrating the fabric as it starts to sew. Turn the flywheel to form a few stitches. Once a chain has been formed, there is no need to place the fabric underneath the foot. The 5-thread overlock is the widest and most secure seam you can sew. It's perfect for garment construction on woven fabrics, such as cotton sheeting, twill, corduroy, and denim. It can also be used on stretch fabrics, such as sweatshirt fleece and t-shirt knits. It stabilizes the shoulder seams, side seams, and armholes. You do not need a lot of stretch in these areas. The chain stitch has some give. You can easily sew with the chain stitch alone. You will need to remove the threads that form the 3-thread overlock, red, yellow, and green. Remember to remove the overlock needle. The display screen tells us to disengage the stitch width finger. Move the needle bar to the highest position before disengaging the finger. The display screen also indicates the upper looper in non-working position. Disengage the looper by placing the needle bar in the lowest position. Push the release lever to the left. The upper looper will slide into non-working position. To re-engage the looper, be sure the needle bar is in the lowest position. Slide the lever to the right and turn the flywheel by hand to engage the upper looper. Let's put the looper in non-working position to sew our chain stitch. The display screen tells us to use the extension table. Remove the snap-on overlock plate. Position the extension table so the numbered markings are right side up. Snap the table into place. Disengage the movable blade. Change the cutting width to 3.5. This allows the extension table to fit snugly into place. The extension table provides a larger sewing surface for sewing anywhere within the fabric. You can use the chain stitch to sew a traditional open seam. Use this marking for a 5/8 inch seam allowance. The chain stitch also makes a perfect basting stitch. Pull it out from the end of the seam with the chain looper thread. You can lock the stitch by cutting into the loop and pulling on the needle thread. Insert the quilting guide into the hole behind the presser foot. Sew perfectly spaced rows to quilt your own fabric. Let's sew another technique, Elna's exclusive cover hem. This is the popular ready-to-wear hem seen on knit garments.
The Pro 905 sews a narrow cover hem. The 925 DCX sews a narrow cover hem, a wide cover hem, and the new triple cover hem. Consult the display screen for the cover hem setup. You will be using the blue, red, and green threading guides. Open the front door to use the cover hem threading chart. Notice the green threading is different from the traditional chain stitch. Pass the thread through the open guide on the antenna, under the clip, and in the tension disc. Thread the 3 guides located here. And into the guide in the left corner. Now thread the chain looper. You remember how. The display tells us to use the needle positions L1 and L2. The blue and red threads use similar paths. Bring the blue thread through the open guide on the antenna and under the clip. Lay the thread in the tension disc and on the right side of this guide. Pass it through the take-up lever slot. Be sure to place the thread in the round guide to the left and under the flat guide to the left. Now, thread the L1 needle. Thread the red pathway through the antenna guide, under the clip, and through the tension disc. Pass it through the take-up lever slot, into the oval guide to the right, and under the flat guide. Thread the L2 needle. Let the threads lay to the left on top of the presser foot.
Place fabric under the foot, making sure the needles penetrate the fabric as you start to sew. The cover hem stitch looks like twin needlework on top and an overlock stitch on the underside. Now you can duplicate ready to wear.
The 925 DCX also sews a wide cover hem. Use needle positions L2 and L0 as indicated. Follow the same threading procedure as the narrow cover hem. The 925 DCX also sews a triple cover hem. The asterisks tell us to use the blue, red, yellow, and green tension discs. You will be threading the chain looper and 3 needles. Start with the green threading path first. Carefully review the threading route for the chain looper. It is a combination of the green and brown color-coded system. Pass the thread through the open guide on the antenna, under the clip, and in the tension disc. Draw the thread downward, placing it into the long groove. Thread the 3 guides here color-coded with brown squares. Continue by placing the thread in the guide in the left corner. Now thread the chain looper. You remember how. The triple cover hem display screen shows 3 needles, 1 in each position, L0, L1, and L2. Notice the open windows. They allow a view for proper needle insertion. The needles will be staggered, the longest being the L0 position. Start using the blue thread guides. Pass the thread through the open guide on the antenna, under the clip, and in the tension disc. Lay the thread on the right side of this guide, bringing the thread to the right, placing it on top of the guide next to the take-up cover. Pass the thread through the take-up cover and between the prongs to the far left, located here. Next, place the thread behind the wide flat guide, sliding it to the far left. Then behind the narrow flat guide, just above the needles. Finally, thread the L0 needle. Allow the thread to lay on top of the presser foot to the left. Thread the red thread guides. Place the thread through the antenna guide, under the clip, between the tension discs, and through the take-up lever slot. Position it between the center prongs on this guide. Slide the thread behind the wide flat guide to the center position. Slip the thread behind the narrow flat guide and thread the L1 needle. Last, thread the guides for the L2 needle. Place the thread through the antenna guide, under the clip, and between the yellow tension discs. Follow the same path as the blue and red thread through the take-up lever. Place the thread between the remaining prongs, below the take-up cover. Slide the thread under the wide flat guide, just right of center. Finally, sliding the thread under the narrow flat guide to thread the L2 needle. Be sure all needle threads are lying on top of the presser foot to the left. The display screen tells us to use the A or the F presser foot. Snap the F presser foot on. It is clear, making it easier to follow any stitching lines. Once again, place the fabric far enough under the foot so the needles penetrate the fabric. Form a few stitches by hand turning the flywheel before stepping on the foot control. The triple cover hem provides 3 rows of stitching on top and a mock honeycomb on the back. You have successfully completed 13 of the 16 built-in programs on the Elna 925 DCX, 11 of the 14 programs on the Pro 905, and 8 of the 11 programs on the Pro 904.
Let's expand your Serger technique knowledge with the use of the Pro cards. The arrow faces to the left when inserting the Pro card into the slot located behind the side door on the right. Press the Card button. The machine will beep once, and the word Card will appear on the display screen if the card is inserted correctly. Press this button to scroll forward to see the 3 additional techniques. The new programs on card number 1 include gathering with 4 threads, a decorative edge with 4 threads, and a decorative edge with 3 threads. The machine will automatically set the tensions with each program.
Each card offers 3 new stitch techniques and is packaged with a Pro card booklet. The booklet provides the threading route, thread type, recommended fabric, purpose or usage of the stitch, and the procedure to execute the technique. Let's gather. The card provides the appropriate information to set up your Elna serger. Thread the machine for a 4-thread stitch.
Set the stitch length at 4.0 and the differential feed at 2.0. The stitch finger, the upper looper, and the movable blade are in working position. Adjust the cutting width to 6.0. Your machine will easily gather light to medium weight fabrics. Use this technique on garments and home deck items. Wouldn't you like to make this attractive edge? It is the Deco Edge 4. Decorative threads will be placed in the threading guides. We have placed a heavier rayon thread in the upper looper and metallic thread in both needles.
Use the tension release clips here with heavier decorative threads.
Adjust the stitch length to 2.5 and the differential feed to 1.0. There are no other changes. The Deco Edge 4 makes a beautiful edge finish on medium to heavyweight fabrics. It can be used on wovens or knits. The Deco Overlock 3 uses a decorative thread in the upper and lower looper. Thread the R1 needle with regular cone thread. This type of edge finish is reversible. It's beautiful on placemats, jacket edges, and receiving blankets.
Pro Card A1 for the Pro 905 and 925 DCX only includes a 5-thread half-inch seam allowance and a 4-thread half-inch seam allowance. The 4-thread is a 2-thread overcast and a 2-thread chain stitch. You can also serge a perfect 1/4-inch seam allowance with 5 threads. It's great for speedy quilt piecing. Card number 2 gives you 3 more fun and fancy techniques. They include the Deco Flatlock 3, the Deco Flatlock 2, and the Deco Ladder 2. It is available for all models. The last page of the Pro Card booklet lists the 3 techniques on the card. Plus, it provides 3 blank spaces for your personal or customized settings. Let's customize the rolled hem 3 stitch to accommodate this nylon yarn-like thread by adjusting the pre-programmed settings. Press one of the plus/minus keys to see a number value in the window. The settings read 4, 2, and 6. The mode window reads Auto. Press the minus key to decrease the yellow or upper looper tension to 1.0. Notice the mode window now reads Manual. Press the plus key to increase the green or lower looper tension to 8.0. The stitch length and differential feed need to be adjusted for this thread and fabric. Press the memory key one time. The stitch length number will blink. Press the Program Selection Advance key to change the stitch length to 0.5. Press the Program Selection Reverse key to move to the differential feed window. The number value is blinking. Press the Program Selection Advance key to change the differential feed to 0.5. Once all adjustments are made, press the memory key one time. The mode window will read Memory. You are now ready to store this information on your Pro card. Insert the Pro card. Press the memory key one time. The stitch length setting will blink. Press the card key once. Blinking will stop. The mode window will not change, but the customized stitch program is now memorized onto the card. Press the card key again to access stitches on the card. Press the Program Selection key to scroll through stitches on the card. The mode window will read Card for the 3 pre-programmed stitches and your customized settings on the Pro 905 and 904. On the 925 DCX, it will read Card M to indicate your personal setting. Make your personal notes in the Pro Card booklet on the last page. To delete a customized stitch, insert the Pro card in the machine and press the card key. Scroll to the stitch to be deleted. Press the memory key one time. The stitch length setting will blink. Press the card key and continue pressing until the blinking stops. The customized stitch has now been deleted. The screen will show the next stitch setting on the card. The mode window will say Card. Press the Program Selection key to scroll through the remaining stitches on the card. Remove the Pro card from the machine and press the card key to exit the card system and return to the pre-programmed menu of stitches. When doing so, the memorized stitch will be displayed on the screen with the mode window reading Memory. Press and hold the card key until the mode window says Auto, returning to the pre-programmed settings. It is not possible to delete the 3 pre-programmed stitches that come on the card. All the information concerning the Pro cards can also be found in your operator's manual. Elna will continue to produce new cards with practical and decorative techniques. Elna also offers the most extensive array of accessories on today's Serger market. Accessories like the bias binder, piping and tape guide, the cover hem belt loop foot, the cording guide, and pin tuck foot were once found only on industrial machines. Elna wishes you many pleasurable hours of fun and exciting serging with your new Elna Serger. Visit your Elna dealer for more information and demonstrations on Elna's complete line of sewing products for the home. Elna, American ingenuity, Swiss design, and engineering excellence.